No. I'm going to explain the process. I told him. Okay. Okay, we're going to start the next phase. I was asked by the brain behind this whole meeting, this conference today, Tzvi Fishman. We have definitely a round of applause. That I was meant to start this forum with the blowing of a shofar. We ran a little bit late, so we're going to do it in the middle over here. So let's have the shofar blowing both for El and for Mashiach. Oh, 1 second. It didn't happen unless it's on video. That's for you, Tzvi. On that note, you can get Tzvi's books that are located downstairs. They are very, very valuable, but they are for free, so you can pick them up downstairs if you'd like on your way in, on your way out. Did you hear that right? Free. This is a Jewish group. They're free. They're going to be gone in no time, I'm sure. We're going to need it for the next thing, but we also have some accomplished authors over here. Some of them have spoken before. Some of them are yet to speak. One of them has a book that is also being sold outside, Becoming Israeli, by Akiva Gersh. He's sitting here in the audience. We hope he'll say some words in the next session. We also have a series of books by Rabbi Moshe Lichtman that are also out there. And we also have a series of books that some samples are outside of Rabbi Pinchas Winston. They can be ordered online through his website at 36.org. The next session is going to involve a public forum. Everyone knows what happens when Jews get together. There's a lot of different ideas that we have, and we all want to speak. We're going to try our best to keep this tame and civil. And we're also going to try to keep it timely. So I'm going to open up my timer over here. We're going to try to give everybody 2 minutes to speak, whoever wants to speak. The way it's going to work is like this. Whoever wants to speak should raise their hand. I will call on them. They will go to the middle of the room where there is a microphone. We will turn on the mic. And they will have 2 minutes to say whatever they want about Aliyah. This is not meant to be a debate. It's not meant to go back and forth. These are just people good people with good ideas and different. This will lead into the next phase, which is going to be the proposal phase. But for right now, we're just giving different ideas. There are different, many people, like I said, they're accomplished authors. Here, there are different people. There are rabbis. There are different people that have all different levels of experience in their lives, and specifically with Aliyah, we have a representative of Nefesh B'Nefesh here. And we'd love to hear from everyone. I hope that the representative from NBN is taking notes over there. We hope to get our proposals to Nefesh B'Nefesh, to the Jewish Agency, to the big bureaucracies that are out there, because we think that we have a lot to share, us, even though we don't have the big budgets. Many of us have these small grassroots organizations that are on shoestring budgets, but we have amazing ideas to share. And just now, I'm just going to put in a little plug for my organization. I run an organization called Bring Them Home. Bring Them Home is an organization that's mission is to educate and inform Jews around the world of the importance of living in Israel today. We have a website that is called itstimetoleave.com. It's easy to remember, itstimetoleave.com. And at that website, we have hundreds of videos. Some we're going to show a little bit later. Hundreds of videos of prominent rabbis and rebbitzins speaking about the importance of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael today. We have our live radio show that we host on the topic every week with Rabbi Moshe Lichtman. And we have recorded podcasts also with Rabbi Nachman Kahana and others. So we encourage you to go there and check out the materials and to subscribe and to share with other people. So anyone who's interested now in speaking, please raise your hand, and hopefully we will get to everyone. We're going to start in the front over here with this gentleman in the red tie. Please go to the microphone in the back, and you have 2 minutes.
Shalom, everybody. I'm Eliyahu Gal-Or, one of the founders of Moshav Modi'in, Rabbi Karlebach's village. I really need an hour, but I'm going to spare you the 58 minutes, and I'll try to make it short. My idea is that Olim go back because they can't make a living, because they don't know Hebrew, and the first thing is give them a chance to have a dignified place of work in which they can speak the language they know, and learn Hebrew at their own pace. Why? See, Rabbi Lev there. Rabbi Lev has done so much for us as a community, and so much for Aliyah too. I don't see him here except on the screen, but I hope he is. And so I am creating a new moshav in the Arava. It's called Eliosville. It's going to be supported by solar technology and by filmmaking, which is my profession. It's going to be a little Hollywood, a little Las Vegas in Israel. No, seriously, there is in Morocco, it's called Ouazzazate. Ponti, who was Sophia Loren's husband, and the Laurentis were coming to make a film in Israel, and so they built a replica of Jerusalem in Morocco, and the replica has brought the Moroccan payment billions of so far in 200 films. The industry in Israel is mature for this, and there is a lot of parnasa to be made for people. So we're going to build studios. It's north of Eilat, about 30 kilometers. The place I found is next to the new airport, Ilan Ramon. You can get some details in a leaflet that I have here. Please pick it up from me. And that's, to make it short, I think I ran out of time.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Okay, who's next? Jeff, please. To the.
First of all, I want to thank all of the speakers. They were all great, but I want to thank the last two, especially Rav Lichtman and my dear brother Yishai, because they placed dagesh on youth. And I think that we have to take their message.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
Okay, my name is Jeff Dalby. I'm very, very involved in Har HaZeitim, as is Josh. And I know that Josh is too humble because he places the dagesh on the youth because he has invited, he has hosted, what would it be, hundreds upon hundreds of seminary students and yeshiva students in his home in Ma'ale HaZeitim. I think we need to take his example and follow it. I'm 72 years old. I think that we should have more people here. If you reverse my digits, we should have more 27 years old here. So I think just maybe what we should do is the next event, the next conference that we have on Aliyah, that we set a limit or a minimum of at least 40% of sub-40 demographic cohort. That I think that is the population that we should be most. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Halavai. Halavai that we should be able to zocha to that. You know, over 10 years ago, we started having a reenactment of the Paschal sacrifice of the Korban Pesach before every Pesach. And the first year that we had it, I believe it was in Kiryat Moshe, we had about 24 people came to it. In recent years, we've had over 1,000 people, including the chief rabbis, come to it. So this small much larger movement, and the next conference 10 times what we have today. Who would like to be the next speaker? Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
First, let me set my timer.
It goes by my timer, by the way.
Is this on your time right now or still on my time? Okay. And I am from Yerushalayim, and you'll allow me to channel inner Yom Kippur Chazan. Hineni he'ani mima'as. I'm looking at people who've been speaking. And I believe I've come up with some, I'd say some more meaningful. I represent Paveway, our Rabbi Horowitz. Everybody here who's working towards Aliyah, Kol HaKavod, Yasher Kochachem, and it's wonderful. I haven't been able to convince my family completely, but I know my son is planning on it, God willing. My daughter, I have 2 Sabras who are now serving in Rosh Hanikra and the Golan, and we're very excited. But the most important thing in terms of Aliyah for us, especially to Aliyah Paveway, is not so much Aliyah as much as it is the day after Aliyah. I come from both a rabbinic and marketing background. And one of the things that I was taught in my marketing years, you're trying product, the product must have a unique selling proposition. My marketing professor said that what you have to add enough. Therefore, it's important for us give them a reason. And this is what I think we have to work on as a group, coordinate our efforts organizationally. And I say that specifically organizationally because
Thank you so much. Next, Akiva.
Thank you very much. Awesome to be here. Inspiring, amazing. I feel like this is like the real Facebook Live. I've seen tons of people I've only seen on Facebook or on Zoom in person for the first time, including Shai and many others. So really, really great. A million things to say. There's so many amazing things were said and important things were said. We can be here for like days and days and weeks. I'll just share one single point. And it's great that I get to go after Sid, right? Because it piggybacks off his idea. For me, I made Aliyah 18 years ago. I live in Pardes Chana now. And I made Aliyah for spiritual reasons. That was the only reason I made Aliyah. I felt spiritually connected here. It was like my spiritual home. Like I could be a Jew here. I didn't grow up religious, go to B'tshuva, whole story, right? And this is where I felt I can be
Buy the
myself.
book.
What?
I said buy the book. If you
Buy the book too, exactly. Zionism for me came later. I literally didn't know a single thing about Zionism until after I made Aliyah. I started learning about it, and then I started teaching about it, and that's been like one of my major fields of work for the last 15 years. But what I've come to realize and see, and it was actually one of the inspirations for me putting out the book, Becoming Israeli 5 years ago, that there's a unique story happening here. There's something happening here that doesn't happen anywhere else for the Jewish people, and honestly can't happen anywhere else because it's in Eretz Yisrael. Right? And I feel like what you're saying is like everything is better here. I say that from a personal experience perspective. Whether it's spirituality, whether it's music, whether it's food, whether it's friends, whether it's everything. There's something about it. Everything's enhanced. Everything's more. People have more time for each other. People have more time for music. I was blown away. I mean, it sounds a little bit like naive, but I literally didn't know that Israeli musicians were really good musicians. I'm also a musician, by the way. So when I started hearing really amazing musicians, like they play jazz here, they play like all kinds of world culture music here. I was blown away, and ever since then, I've been blown away. Right? So the point that I wanted to share is I feel like there could be and maybe should be a multifaceted approach to Aliyah. There should be like an environmental Aliyah. There should be a music Aliyah. There should be a foodie Aliyah. There should be a spirituality Aliyah. Right? Forget all the Reform, conservative, Orthodox, Haredi, right? You're talking about quality of life. Life is awesome here. I see my friends, how they're living in America. I feel bad for them. I'm not even kidding. A friend of mine in the DC area took me out for lunch once a few years ago. I'm like, this is what you have for kosher food? It was an embarrassment. Right? We have better kosher food in the bus station here. And I just feel like everything's just on fire here. We know that. We all live here, right? And I feel like that kind of approach, and all those different aspects of life, inspiring American Jews, like, your life is okay. It could be so much better. You're religious, non-religious, that's not even the question. From Haredim to hippies, and everyone in between, I really deeply believe that they have a better quality of life here, and that's why they should come home.
Next, man in the dark blue.
I also have a marketing background. Like Sid, I'm going to slightly disagree with him, but really agree with him. Because before we get to the ideas, my name's Shani Reich. I live in Modi'in. I made Aliyah 10 years ago from New York. Thank you, Nefesh B'Nefesh. Before we get to the ideas that Sid spoke about, you need what's called brand awareness. When you drive down the highway in the U.S. and you see a Coca-Cola billboard, you see a Coca-Cola ad on TV, that's branding, that's brand awareness. It gets people to talk about Coca-Cola. And then, okay, later on, they're hungry, they're thirsty, so what are they going to buy? To drink, they're going to buy a Coca-Cola. But just seeing that ad isn't going to make them buy a Coca-Cola. It's part of the overall experience. And that's what's missing with Aliyah. It's not discussed in America. It's not a topic of conversation. People who do make Aliyah, it's very quiet. And being an Aliyah-minded Jew in New York is a very lonely experience. So something needs to happen. Rabbis like Ari spoke about, speaking about Aliyah in shuls, maybe a little bit different, but scholars coming to shuls, to schools in America, talking about the mitzvah of Aliyah, not pushing, saying you have to make Aliyah today, but but talking about Aliyah, and reminding people that guy around the corner, he made Aliyah. And one last thing, we talked about also the youth, the importance of the youth. And I think that really is the low-hanging fruit. These kids who come for the year in yeshiva should be making Aliyah. And even if Rabbi Liftman, I spoke to him about this, goes and speaks about the mitzvah of Aliyah, that's great, but now what? None of these people know that Bar Ilan, Hebrew University, that the army are options. They're told, why you, why you, why you? If these yeshivas convince a kid not to go to Columbia, but to go to YU, that's their big success. They should be convincing kids not to go to YU, but to go to Bar Ilan. That would really be the success. And if you get them to do that, you also you promote the universities to the yeshiva high schools in America, and even the next step would be to promote the Na'aleh program, YTA, to the 8th grade kids in America to come here for high school instead of going to yeshiva high schools, to save them a bundle of money also.
Thank you so much. There was a woman that commented earlier, a very nice woman that commented that I was bashing Chabad. Those that know me know that there's one group that I bash a lot more than Chabad, and that's the group from Lakewood. Lakewood, New Jersey is my favorite people to pick on. I was in a shul in LA. I got up to speak. He pulled me over right before I got up to speak, and he said to me, I'm not sure exactly what you're going to speak about, but I just want to let you know that there's one thing that we don't speak about here. We don't use in this shul the A word. I said, excuse me? He says, Aliyah. We don't talk about Aliyah here. So that is taboo in that shul. Of course, that's all I spoke about. I'm sure I'm not going to be invited back, but that was the purpose of me being there. David, please come up to be the next speaker.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Israel Eskenazi. I'm the founder of the Alia Network, something we founded in January 2020. I just wanted to share the quick idea of the Alia Network. It was an idea to sort of take people, boots on the ground, people who already live in Israel, in various categories to be able to help people potentially make Aliyah. So whether it's finding a job or whether it's finding a community. I know there's a lot of groups that are already doing this, but not from a from a standpoint of a company or from an organization, but real people, just the teachers, the mothers who can actually talk about the schools. And today we're a few thousand people. We've helped hundreds of people, with their Aliyah. And sometimes it's just about, just a little support, right? So everybody here is talking a little bit about targeting, about who they're targeting. And I'm in business development. I know a little bit about targeting. It's called an ICP, an ideal client profile. I think that's all good and fine. But I think really the focus today should be on what we could do with our resources here, how we could possibly connect one another here in a way so that we can create the kind of network to be able to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. In other words, we're trying to stop a tsunami with a little tiny leg wall here, But in truth, I think that we need to respond to what he's already doing and to organize our efforts together. We all have the resources here already to do that. So instead of thinking about who could we target, let's target everybody and just make sure that we get our act together before that happens. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank David because he's come all the way from Nahariya. I think that's the furthest distance that anyone has come for the conference. So Yesher Koach for coming all this way. Next up to speak. Yes, ma'am. You're next.
So, hello, my name is Sarah Tarshish, and I just wanted to say, following what was just said now, a kli that we have that we use in Kiryat Moshe, my neighborhood, we have a lot of English speakers, and we actually had a woman who was going to make Aliyah, and like half a year or more before she made Aliyah, she joined our English-speaking WhatsApp group. And an English-speaking WhatsApp groups in all the neighborhoods in all the country, that is a wonderful kli that we can give over, not just you have an adoptive family, which is, also a kli, but this is a lovely kli. And even if people know they're moving to Ramat Beit Shemesh, they're moving to a yeshuv, they're moving wherever, let them join the WhatsApp group, and then they'll already feel a part of the community by the time they come. So that's one tachlis thing that can be done. And how we're going to get Kalkal to release land for building all these lovely communities when they all rush over. So if you can't go through the Knesset, maybe we can go through Kalkal, lo yodat. that's something to think about for someone who has connections.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Jaya Gross, and I would say my claim to fame is that this summer I celebrated 40 years since making Aliyah.
Mazel tov.
We made Aliyah on a one-way ticket. There was no nefesh b'nefesh. Nobody in the Sachnut or in any of the offices spoke English, and we didn't know any. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I think we have to stop begging people to come to Israel. I think it's a privilege every minute of every day that we're in Israel, and I say that after 40 years. It's not easy. It's never been easy. And I think that trying to portray Israel as the answer, it is, of course, the only answer when you realize that there's no going back. If you think that you're going to come try it, and if it doesn't work out, you're going to go back, then don't come, because the truth is it's always easier in America. I just spent, I had a mother who was 97, Aliyah Shalom, and I went back to Canada for a year and a half. You don't talk about Israel. You don't talk about Aliyah. The fact that I was living here almost 40 years, it was like, it was a non-starter. Even when they're teaching Torah, it's not like the ultimate goal is to get to Eretz Yisrael. No, it's like, when Mashiach comes, the ultimate goal is to get to Eretz Yisrael. And in my opinion, Mashiach's coming any minute, because we've already been through 4 elections, and I don't think this one's going to be any different. Okay, but not that, now you have to also understand, I'm from Canada. And after I saw what happened with the truckers in Canada, I think the situation is emergency, because they can do anything. They can close your accounts. You can't take any money like they did in South Africa. They can do anything. I mean, that was very, very clear, because the Canadian truckers were domestic terrorists. If they want to know about terrorists, they can come here. They were not domestic terrorists. They were peaceful demonstrators, again, in a democratic country, and they were treated appallingly. So that's just, again, a little background. Now, I think that the work really needs to be done here, not there. Because if we work here, I mean, today, even with Nefesh B'Nefesh, there's no reason Aliyah should take a year, at least. Okay, people came from Ukraine and Russia. Nobody checked if they were Jewish, not Jewish. If they didn't have, everybody got. Okay, they were staying in the Dan in the Tel Aviv. I've been here 40 years. I never stayed in the Dan in Tel Aviv, and neither did most Israelis. So we have to kind of keep things in perspective, because they're not going to be welcome when Israelis who are breaking their butt and doing the army. My son's in university. He's working. Nobody's giving him anything, and it's okay. Okay, but I think that when they come and they're getting a free degree, and we have to kind of keep things in proportion. And the proportion is that it's a privilege to come here. We want you. We'll help you in every way possible. But, no free ticket. Okay, I think that we were talking about changing paradigms. I know Yishai represents Hebron. I used to bring women to Hebron 30 years ago. Okay, it was unheard of. Nobody went to Hebron. It was like unheard of. Every single child in Israel should have an obligation to go to Hebron at least once a year. Why is that not part of the Misrad of Chinuch? Here we're trying to get people from America who don't speak the language, don't have the connections. You need a doctor, a dentist, a plumber. You don't know anybody. So you're trying to tell them to come here and everything's going to be fine. It doesn't work like that. Okay, in order for it to work like that, each of us have to be an Aliyah Shaliach. Each of us have to be Nefesh B'Nefesh. And until that happens, then Aliyah is really like a lot of wasted money. As far as I'm concerned, we have a Ministry of Immigrant Absorption. The Jewish Agency should close, and all that money should be used to help young Israelis stay here. If we wanted to really look at our target group, how many Israelis are living abroad? They speak the language, they have family here, they have connections, they could probably get jobs in high tech after their education abroad. Why not bring them back? Why are we trying to bring people who don't know the language? Because for me, it wasn't, the fact that I didn't know the language was one thing, but I didn't understand the culture. Israeli culture is very, very different than Jewish culture. I mean, I'm talking to, the choir. We all understand this. But when we're talking about, these wild ideas of bringing massive Aliyah, they're going to come, and we're not ready. That's my fear. My fear isn't trying to convince them to come. They're going to come.
Thank you.
For Canada, people are getting nervous. And in America, I mean, if people think Biden's running America, then we're, whatever, that's another story. But also, why only America? There's plenty of Jews, you know, I've been to Russia and I've been to the Ukraine. Believe me, they're living great. $500, you have a personal driver who takes your kids back in school, back in school and picks up your groceries and does everything. And they have full-time help and they live in beautiful houses, and the education, they're learning Russian, Hebrew, and French, and education systems we could dream about. So, you know, like to say like, oh, America, no. Ukraine and Russia and France and Belgium and Switzerland, and South America. We don't even have to start with what's going on in South America.
We have to conclude.
Okay, so to conclude, I just want to say, one second, I want to just look back at my notes for a minute. So I guess my message is really the paradigm shift has to happen here. What's going on here is not acceptable if we're serious about absorbing people, Jews, okay, hopefully Jews, from all over the world. And the other thing is that we're coming to an election. Who has Aliyah on their agenda? You know, we're all saying Zionism. Who has Aliyah on the agenda? Number one on the agenda. Number two, three. Okay, so I think that that's something that we should also
Thank you so
about.
much.
Okay.
It's along the lines of what you're saying. A couple months ago, I was in Switzerland, in Geneva, and I met a young couple who just got married. They were on their honeymoon. And I walked over to them and said to them, they were from Manchester, I believe. And I said to them, Mazel Tov, that's very nice, you're on your honeymoon. When are you moving to Israel? And I was surprised to hear back that they're actually, right after the honeymoon in Switzerland, they're going back to Manchester. They're going to pack up their bags. And they said they're going to come to Israel to try it out for a year. So I sat down with them, and I said, I have some advice for you. I have some marriage advice for you, and I have some Aliyah / Eretz Yisrael advice for you. I said, it's the same exact advice. I said, if you go into it with the attitude that you're going to try it out for a year and see if it works, it probably won't. So, you know, if you're committed, I'm sure it'll work out. And with that, and anybody else? Yes, sir, with the blue shirt.
Shalom to everyone. My name is Avi Lipkin. I'm not actually known in this circle. I think we need to give Hashem more credit because Hashem has a program. And the program is in the Torah. And there's going to be a tremendous homecoming of Jewish people from all over the world. And it's not like we think it is. Jewish people are very good at driving with their eyes on the rear view mirror and saying, never again, but not seeing the Shoah that is coming now in the United States and maybe in Canada. Today in the news, they said that Kirchner, the vice president of Argentina, almost got assassinated. That would have started a civil war in Argentina. Who's the first to get killed? The Jews. The purpose of me standing up now is because I had lunch with a neo-Nazi in the Villages in Florida. And I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi. I just knew he was part of the militias. And for the last 32 years, because of the socialists here in the government, and I got fired illegally from the Prime Minister's office, I have to go to the United States and Canada and other countries to make a living. I give lectures. I was an Israeli army spokesman for 14 years, artillery 16 years. So I kind of have a background here in Israel, 2 years in the Prime Minister's office, but I was Likud, I was thrown out. I met with this gentleman, and he was a gentleman, very good appearance, and he asked me, tell me, what do you think about the killing of George Floyd, the black man who was choked to death by the policeman? And I said, well, if he was a criminal, that should have been taken care of by the courts. But to have the policeman put his knee on the neck of the man and kill him, this was a horrible thing. He didn't say anything. And then he said to me, what do you think about defund the police? I said, well, I think it's horrible because defund the police, you're going to have killings and crime and chaos. And he nodded no. He said, no. He said, you don't understand. We had 3 million members of our right-wing militias before the killing of George Floyd. Today we have 30 million. They're all armed. They have lots of ammunition. And the first thing we're going to do is to kill the Jews in America. Why? Because the Jews are communists. The Jews vote Democrat. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what this neo-Nazi said. And this is an exact repetition of the pre-Holocaust years in Europe in the 1920s and 30s, when you had street battles between Nazis and fascists and communists and socialists. I'm very afraid, never again does not apply. We are going to see, especially now with all this tension between the Democrats and Republicans, and I'm not going to take sides. What I'm going to say is the Jews are the ones who don't have a clue about any of this. And Israel has to prepare for the Aliyah of millions and millions of people to the land of Israel. This will be like Israel in the 1950s. All the valleys are going to be white with tents because we're going to have tent cities, because these people, if they don't leave, they're going to die. And it's very important for our leadership to see this. My last thing I wanted to say is I did write a letter to Yitzhak Bougie Herzog, who is the president of Israel, and he thanked me for it. About 2-3 weeks later, I went back to the States for another lecture circuit, and there was an announcement that they have an emergency absorption plan for 500,000 Jews from America. My understanding of that means Haredim, or Orthodox, the ones who are most open to making Aliyah. But I think we have to look at the general population of the 6 million Jews. There are in Canada many Jews, they're in Argentina. My family's from Argentina originally. There are in France. We heard this gentleman from France. This is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Jews coming home. And I think we have to look at Hashem to see what he's planning to do. We have to understand the ideologies, the communism, the Nazism. And I'm very excited.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's getting hot now. It's getting hot. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
all the way in the back, the woman with the hat, please come up.
My name is Jaya Gross, and I made Aliyah 33 years ago, and with different places I worked. I worked for this fantastic company called Arava, and was headed by Raphael Ben Yosef, who was an importer. I was Secretary Gal Friday. Yes, Secretary Gal Friday, like this. After I worked for him for many years, part-time, here and there. He put together this book called A Blue and White Paper. This book is 25 years old, and he got his friends, some of them were in the Macha, they made Aliyah around 1948 to maybe 1990, and here he crosses off the white paper. He actually got a copy and stuck it on the sheet, put a cross, and put a blue and white paper. And in this book, he also to research all of these 10 essays. One was by a Tat Netziv, Mayor Kaplan. Maybe some of you heard of him, Mayor Kaplan, who came on Aliyah from the States in 1948. And he discusses the secret agreement between Ben-Gurion and Jacob Blaustein, who was head of the Jewish, AGC, American Jewish Committee. In 1950, there was a secret agreement that the Jewish, him supposedly representing all Jews in the United States, and the Jews would donate their monies to the nascent state of Israel and help fund it, but the state of Israel would never, till this day, because this agreement is still valid, the state of Israel will never demand Aliyah from the Jews of the United States. They would never do this, and that is why, who told me just now or whenever, that they went to the different members of Knesset and said, would you push Aliyah? And, you know, this is why. There is an agreement, and the URL is with it's on my Facebook page, and I have a link to Tzvi Fishman, so you could find it on his page too.
Thank you.
This is called. I scanned this with the permission of the son of the late Raphael Ben Yosef, and he said, for sure, distribute it.
Thank you very much.
And you can find this, and please read it, and especially the copy of what Mayor Kaplan had to say about this. And he also, Mayor Kaplan says, this agreement has to be abrogated. You have to get rid of it. And this is the basic problem of why Israel never pushed them to make Aliyah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, woman in yellow, please come up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Robin Diamond. I have a lot of things to say, but I'm going to say basically one thing. Speaking to the thing about we're not ready, and I have absolutely no faith that the current leadership, which I consider to be Erev Rav, have any interest in facilitating, supporting, pushing Aliyah. We should know that in 450 public schools here, they're using the Hartman Institute curriculum, which was formulated by the Hartman Institute, which is reform, and it's a destruction of an entire generation of non-Torah education going on now. Mishpacha magazine did an article on this, an in-depth report on this 3 years ago. You can look it up yourself. And so for the last 3 years, there's no Torah in the public schools. Whatever mention of Torah there is, it's diluted and reform and cynical and skeptical, and it's a terrible destruction. It's really a churban, what's been going on for the last few years. And 2 members of the Knesset now, and who will be in the next, unless we get very lucky, please, they signed off on this curriculum. You know, I don't like to mention names because I don't want to bring Lashon Hara. But 2 members, prominent members of the Knesset now signed off on this, and they know all about it, and it would surprise you to know who it is. And this is a terrible, terrible destruction, very dangerous, and it needs to be overturned. And I don't have faith in the government at all. But I do have faith when Hashem says, Yikabetzcha v'yikakecha. I will gather you and I will bring you to me, which means in Torah, and this is imminent. So we should do whatever we want to do. Everything that's been suggested is wonderful, but we should. My faith is that it's all going to unfold in a powerful way. And when the Or Mashiach is released, you won't be able to stop 13 million Jews from coming here. You will not be able to stop them. On the wings of eagles, they will come.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, all the way in the back in blue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ziva Glanz, and I made Aliyah as a teenager, and I am part of a group of professionals that have been waiting for about a year for all of you, so we're very excited to have you here. I'll tell you why. We actually started during COVID when we saw that there was the waves, even a little bit before COVID actually, when we saw that there were these waves of Aliyah that were projected to come, and it only got worse obviously with COVID, and we saw the numbers of Nefesh B'Nefesh, and we're working with them. We saw that there was going to be a need for high-level professionals who work with the government, know how to work within the government, and how to get things done in Israel to create a plan that could actually work. We had seen so many well-meaning people, so much of us, so many people here, who we've all knocked on doors, we've all pounded on doors, and we have not gotten the response that we needed. The political echelon has not responded in the way that they needed to, and we wanted to put together a practical master plan for Olim and challenge the government to accept that in a way that speaks their language. Okay, and the way there's a method to the Israeli bureaucratic madness. They won't tell it to you. It's not written anywhere, but if you know how it works, you can utilize it to your benefit to actually maybe try to get something done. And we put together a super network of all the players involved in the Aliyah and Klita space. We called it Lashuv, but everybody who came together, these are all the Misrad Aliyah v'Klita, Nefesh B'Nefesh, Misrad HaShikun, OU, all these different organizations. And the reason why we were so adamant to have everybody together is because we felt that the first mistake that's made is everybody's coming from their pina. Everybody's coming from their corner and they're knocking on the door. And in Israel, nobody looks up from their desk unless you have consensus, right? Consensus. And that is the first ingredient that you need for success in Israel. And therefore, the only way that anybody's going to be successful in affecting real change in this area is if everybody comes together with one unified voice and vision, and they say, you know what, the Anglo community or the Olim community is finally waking up. They're finally sort of getting themselves together. Elements have gotten themselves together politically, right? You have the Russians, you even have the French now, the Ethiopians. We have not done that successfully so far in terms of the Anglo community. But if we come together now, we can actually affect change. And we challenged all of these agencies and all of these organizations to come together for a master plan for Olim, building off of pre-approved laws that were done during the wave of the Russian Aliyah, and basically saying to them, we want you to create A, B, and C. We see certain issues here, certain criteria that we included. Everybody here is welcome to also suggest more criteria that should be included as well. And we got everybody to agree to be at a roundtable discussion about this. Now, this was all happening right as two things happened. First of all, Zev Elkin, who's the minister of Misrad HaShikun, he was pulled off to Ukraine. That was the first thing. Second thing is obviously we went to elections now. However, we do have the haskama of these organizations to sit together at this roundtable based on these criteria in this master plan for Olim. And we are looking for everybody's help to do this, everybody's help to put this together. It is actually happening, which is an amazing thing. What's going to come? We have very high aspirations. I mean, we have high aspirations even for them to utilize precedent that was set during the Russian wave of Aliyah, which laws were passed. It requires a chalta mimshatit, which is not easy to achieve. However, to utilize the same laws that were approved already by the yoatzot mishpatiyim of the Knesset, and they take the same nusach, so it's already pre-approved, so we save ourselves that and to fast-track lands for the purpose of Olim, with a 60% yi'ud for Olim in different zoning. We're working together with the planning authorities to create housing that works within the context of the laws and the confines of zoning laws here in Israel, but is also better for Olim. So for instance, if you have to have, I'm sorry?
You have to conclude.
Okay, whatever. We're working within the confines, and we're working within their language and within the confines of what the Messiut is on the ground today in Israel, but working to try to make the best change possible, make things happen, because like everybody's saying here, we know that they're going to show up. There's a pasuk that says, Od yikanu batim u'kramim be'eretz Yisrael, and it says, not yikanu, they won't buy houses and vineyards in the future in Eretz Yisrael. It's talking about Yemot Mashiach. It says yikanu, like with an aleph, that they'll be jealous of those who have. So we're trying to be roas hanolad, see the future, know that they're coming, and try to make the best possible plans so they're not in mabarot like they used to be.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Lashuv.
Go ahead.
It's called Lashuv, and basically it's really just a super network. It's just professionals that got together, and yeah. Exactly.
There's a lot
That's
of
why I'm
people
so happy
here
you guys
that
are
have
here. I just dedicate
that have
their
different
professional
organizations
services.
and different projects that are overlapping.
Just a network.
And this is a great opportunity for each of you to network with each other and to collect each other's information and see how we can collaborate with each other. Please, next.
Thank you very much. My name is Ephraim Hershkovitz, and I see when I came here, I heard about the conference. Baruch Hashem, I made it here. I would like to speak about something that may not be the correct place, but I think it is in the end of the day. Less than half a year ago, my father passed away, and I decided in his memory I'm going to start something that I always was on my heart, which is Eretz Yisrael. Started a organization, a project, Shevach Haaretz, which everybody is welcome to join. Every week we have Divrei Torah, stories, Shevach on Eretz Yisrael. Now, when I started this was geared more, as you can see, I'm with the hat and jacket here. I grew up, went through the Haredi system in Eretz Yisrael, in Chutz La'aretz and in Eretz Yisrael. And what I think is something that is missing that I would like to add here is the untapped Jewish population. I think somebody spoke here about emergency program, 500,000 Haredim, but in the end of the day, I think most Haredim that come to Eretz Yisrael, they come there 1 year to Eretz Yisrael, or they're 1 or 2 years, came out every yeshiva bacher or seminary girl has the opportunity to hear about Eretz Yisrael, to hear about the beauty. The only problem is where do they go? They go to seminaries, they go to yeshivas, and in the end of the day, if a yeshiva or seminary becomes known as a place that speaks about Aliyah, speaks about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael, speaks about the mitzvah, people will stop sending there because most adults don't want their kids moving to Eretz Yisrael. What are you going to do? That's, in the end of the day, people want their children nearby. So what hopefully I'll be starting soon after the Chagim is something that I think was needed. I learned in yeshiva. I don't know if any of you have heard of Yitzchak Shlomo Zilberman. He was, if you ever heard Uri Zohar, so he was the Rav that was Mekarev Rav Uri Zohar. They called him the Yerushalmi. Yeah, he didn't want his name. So there was a Gilgul of this yeshiva, and an American yeshiva was opened up, and I had the schus. I already made Aliyah, but I had the schus to learn there. And I think of the Talmidim that came there, everybody was there was English speaking. Everybody was there from the United States, from Canada, and other places. And I don't know exactly the number, but I think it's something like 80% that stayed in Eretz Yisrael until this day. This is 16 years ago. Have their families here, living here, their children here, and not only that, they brought others with them. So what was the difference between this yeshiva and other yeshivas? Is because in this yeshiva they heard about Eretz Yisrael. They heard not just about, in passing, what somebody said here about it's going to be when the Mashiach comes. That's not true. A Jew is supposed to live in Eretz Yisrael, nothing to do with the Mashiach, nothing to do with anything else, not even with the state of Israel. If the state of Israel wasn't here and didn't exist, every single one in this room would still have the obligation to live in Eretz Yisrael because that's the mitzvah to live. So I think there's something very important here in the chinuch. And, okay, somebody spoke here, go to America, start speaking in their schools. We know here the Margen went, you can't speak about it there. We have the opportunity when they come here for that year, for those 2 years, we have the opportunity. A few weeks ago, I was in the Kaisel on Thursday night, and you just go, every other person is a yeshiva bacher who came there, because that's what they do after a long week of yeshiva. They want to come daven in the place that's closest to the Beis HaMikdash, that B'ezras Hashem will be built soon. And this is where you can gather them. This is where you get them. This is where you pull them into a shir. This is where you get them to hear that Eretz Yisrael doesn't stop after your 1 or 2 years here. Eretz Yisrael is something in the future. And I don't want to take too much of your time. I welcome everybody to join the project and to help in whatever way you want. But I just want to end with something very, very positive that I heard. I think it was a half a year ago. It was brought to my attention. I don't know if you know who Shlomo Rechnitz is. He's one of the biggest philanthropist in the Haredi world. He's got a few billion in his bank account. And he doesn't just speak. When he says something, you got to take it. In front of the entire Mir Rosh Yeshivas of America, not of Israel, he got up and spoke and he said, if I mixed up the numbers, I apologize, but I think it's something like this. In 15 years from now, 75% of you will not be here, America, but will be in Eretz Yisrael. So I say, if that's true, and B'ezras Hashem will be quicker than 15 years, it'll be 100% of us, but we have to make that effort to educate them. It's true in the end of the day that there's nefesh b'nefesh and there's this, but in the end of the day, we have to get to them when they're young. We have to plant the seeds that will ripen and we'll find all of Am Yisrael here very soon.
Thank you so much. Yehudis Shamroth, we owe a round of applause. She's one of the organizers. She's the one that's done all the hard work behind the scenes here, and she'd like to say a few words.
Hi. Thank you very much, Yehudis Shamroth. I live in Ramat Beit Shemesh. I made Aliyah also before Nefesh B'Nefesh, but not as long ago as you. We came the year before, right before 9/11, actually. So we were pretty grateful. We were watching it from this side and not over there. I've been excited about Aliyah since I came here, although the backstory is that I came here in tears. I didn't think I would like it. I thought my husband was bullying me into coming here. And then after about a month, I said, why didn't you bring me here 10 years ago? Because my neshama belongs, and I'm so grateful I raised my children here. But I really just want to tell you that this is the whole focus of this conference, or one of the points of it, is that we should all meet each other. We should all try to unify in some way. And we really need to get the Israeli government on board with making it a priority to bring people here, because as so many of us are in tune to the fact that we're living in the end of days and we're in the Geula Shalema, and everybody's going to come over here, but we have to get out of the just the spiritual consciousness for a second and be tachlis and say, how are we going to help them? Okay, I'm a nurse anesthetist, and one of my big beefs is that the Mizrat of Briut is got to be redone completely. I had to go back and forth to America for 18 years to to do what I do. Couldn't work here. They didn't accept my degree. It was too high for them or something. I don't know. But anyway, I want everybody who has an organization, please, I know you signed up already, but please put your name of your organization and your phone number so we can share it with each other afterwards, okay? And because they're not everybody has an organization here, but if there's maybe 10, we should all know of each other before we leave, and especially the organization the woman just spoke before about Hashuv, yours is called Hashuv? Yeah, we should all join together. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. And thank you for all your hard work. Yes, sir.
Shalom, shalom. Yes.
This gentleman is a missionary.
I am not, actually.
Can you please put the microphone back in the thing?
Oh, sorry.
Christian Testimony International, mobilizing and equipping artistic and innovative ministries and missionaries for Christ worldwide. Is that you?
That is not us. But it is a 501c3 which funnels money from Christian organizations in order to help with Aliyah. I'm Chaim Mailspin with the Aliyah Return Center. That's who I am.
Sir, as long as you're not mentioning anything about Christianity, I'm willing to allow you.
Website, it says Jesus' last words to disciples.
Please.
May I share?
Let me see what he has to say. If it's not Matim, then of course we will stop him from speaking.
I think we can all be grown-ups. I'm not.
Sir,
okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I made Aliyah about almost a quarter of a century ago. And around a quarter of a century ago. And what I've found is that when I look to the right and left, I see people who are heroes because we believe, like Yaakov Avinu. No, I'm not. Like Yaakov, I realize that we have to dream the dream. And so what we've decided to do is have a way we could have a raffle where all the Jewish people in the world enter into a raffle. Now, the whiskey makers that made Birthright, actually, they worked hard. They put a percentage of their earnings towards a prize. Now, if we look at Jeremiah 16, verse 16, we see that there is a time of fishers and a time of hunters. And I think we heard that there is a shift in that. So how do you catch a fish? Shnia. How do you fish? With bait.
Please, everybody, please. Let's be civil. If there's something that he says which is inappropriate, I will cut the microphone.
Thank you.
I will assure you. Thank you.
So the way, and then I'll wrap it up. I see it's not very welcome, but what you do, like the Canadian whiskey makers, we have a raffle which includes trips through an app. No one is. So what you could do is you have these journeys where you it's almost like TikTok, but it's Aliyah Talk, and people share their experiences to the young people, and those who win get to experience the full journey. And that way, when they make Aliyah in this app, they're able to share this with their kids and their kids' kids, and therefore a legacy or a tree of life is birthed. Okay, it sounds like people don't want to hear it, so I'll make it short. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else that wants to speak? Go ahead. Yes, sorry, I didn't see you. I apologize. Okay, next speaker, please. If you could just if you could just lower the microphone a little bit.
I'm short.
There we go. Okay, shh.
My name's Alison Epstein, and my husband Stephen and I made Aliyah about 16 years ago from Toronto with our 2 daughters. And we had a very successful Aliyah, I would believe, and I just want to talk about how that happens. Number one, it happens because you don't have a plan B. I agree. Don't come for a year. Come to stay and come to make it work, no matter what. Excuse me. Really?
Please, let her speak.
Thank you. And I think that that's part of what we have to convey to people. Now, the people who might show up and have to live in tents, they're not going to have a choice. But there are other people who do have a choice, and they have to know that when they come, they have to come and be prepared to stay. And there are people here who will help them. And I think that's another thing, like this WhatsApp group that I don't know who mentioned it, But we have WhatsApp groups in Ashkelon and Rehovot, where we lived before, and these things are very, very helpful. And all of us can do this, and we can all reach out to people and make them welcome and get them going early on. But one thing that I think is very important, and this is really Misrad Klita, this is a government issue, is Ulpan here is Alapanim for Olim, especially Olim from North America. I came working. I had work over the internet. To go and sit for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 months and take Ulpan is ridiculous for adults. It works if you're coming from Russia with nothing. And it worked when those people were 20. But I think the whole Misrad Klita system, and maybe this is through Nefesh B'Nefesh, they have to think differently about Ulpan and how Ulpan can be restructured for Olim from North America. It's really important. Housing, that's a government issue. They're going to have to figure it out. Hopefully they will. And I'll just say one more thing, and that's the word jukes. We had some really good friends in Toronto, and you know her reason for not making Aliyah? Jukes. And I think that there's jukes here. So I think there really could be some very lighthearted material for all the crazy reasons.
They only have cockroaches in North America.
Right,
here they have jukes.
Right. We got jukes here. And then they made the car, and my daughters just love that one. But I think that there really could be some marketing material on all the crazy reasons that people have for not making Aliyah.
Okay. Please, if anybody wants to take something outside, there's room outside to have discussions. Meanwhile, please let the people that want to speak. Did you, ma'am, you finished?
I'm done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Who else would like the chance to speak? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
She's a hard act to follow. We came about helping in Aliyah.
Can you pick up the microphone just to drop?
Sorry.
There we go.
We came about the helping in Aliyah kind of backwards. We lived in Rehovot for many years. We moved to Ashkelon 2 years ago and decided to grow the community. And in the process, we started dealing with Olim. Again and again and again, 3 or 4 times a week, talking to people on the phone and making Aliyah. One of the biggest issues for people making Aliyah, we found, was where to live. And that was like one of the biggest one of the most difficult nuts to crack. And I remember my grandfather moved to Canada and davened at the Ojever Shul. Communities built, similar communities in Canada and the States. We're working in stealth mode, small group, early stages, of creating community Aliyah, where a whole community, a kihila, can come together with a rav, a shul, community. They have hive mind, thinking where they, about the new place where they're going to live, and you can buy a large place, a small place, different options, but they come together. There's this immediate support group, as opposed to a person making out themselves. Here, they come with the kihila, with their rav, with the community over a period of years. So that's something we're working on. If anybody knows of communities that are interested in participating, let me know. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Rabbi Josh Fass from Nefesh B'Nefesh told me last year, maybe the representative can tell me if this is still the case, something which is amazing. For the first time in at least modern Jewish history, there are 13 different communities, that's whole communities from North America that are looking to move as communities. This is something that's never been seen before. Of course, Rabbi Riskin and a couple people from the Lincoln Square Synagogue and others have moved here, but to see whole communities that are expressing interest in moving, this is something which is really amazing to see, and we're very excited about it. You wanted to speak? Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. We're not the proposals yet. We're still just no. Any other 2-minute speaks? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
I just want to say, in light of how many people there are, and just like we say, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, I think it would be very helpful if you could make Seder afterwards when you have everybody's email addresses, that you can divide it, put all the organizations, and additionally maybe have sign-up groups for whoever has a passion for marketing, whoever has a passion for housing issues. And this way we could kind of, after the fact, not just get all worked up, but, you know, have something to plug into. That's one question. What I wanted to just say myself, I first came to the country in 1985, and my parents had failed Aliyah, and I finally, after many years of davening, we got married here, we moved back to the States for 5 years, and that turned into 19, and we came back 6 years ago with a bunch of teenagers and older kids, which is something you know, don't try this at home. But I want to just say that I do feel that just like I've also been involved in Kiruv, I don't think that more is always more. I think that people are called, and I think that whether they're young people, whether they're Haredim, whether they're any Jew that feels called, we need to work on efforts that they can access us. Nefesh B'Nefesh has done a great job of creating a portal for those people, but we have to put other things out there. And the last thing I want to say is, I'm not against working with the government. I don't have strong emotions that way. I'm very pragmatic. I think that the most powerful thing we can do is similar to what she did in Lashuv, grassroots efforts. When done with Seichel and presented, it makes it easier for them they can take credit for it if they want to, but this is what affects change in general, I think, in this country, is we don't have to wait for them to. I worked also for the Minhal, and I worked as a Rekezet Olim, and I'm just telling you, it's like, you know, we can all grow old and gray while waiting for the budget to finally get dispersed. So I think that whatever we can do on our own, it's the erusa delatata, how do you say it? This is what we do to say, yes, we're waiting, we want them to come, we want to be the welcoming committee. So,
thank you so much. Absolutely, that is the goal of this conference, is in order to bring people together, to network, and to make sure that we all are on the same page. We come up with proposals. The idea is to present those proposals afterwards to government agencies, to the different bureaucracies. One of the things that my organization does, and I try to stress, is that many of the bureaucratic organizations, I don't say that in a negative way, but there are many organizations out there that are involved in the how one should make Aliyah. And that's very important, to go through, you know, all the different government bureaucracies and how one goes and initiates Aliyah, how all the different paperwork that's necessary. That's an important part of making Aliyah. But equally important, maybe even more important, is before you get to the how you make Aliyah, you need to address why you should make Aliyah. And there are very few organizations out there that are doing exactly that. Our organization, our mission is to educate and inform Jews around the world of why you should make Aliyah, so they can get to the how, so we can push them into the Nefesh B'Nefesh train. So we want to make sure that they first have, because unfortunately there are so many communities outside Israel that they don't, as many of the speakers have mentioned, do not speak about the centrality of Eretz Israel. This is not part of their curriculum. Some places it's even taboo. So it's really important to get to them and explain to them why you should make Aliyah, so they can get to the how. Rivka, you wanted to speak? Go ahead, please.
My name is Rivka Lambert Adler, and I have just a very practical approach that I use with my family and friends in America. Number one, I make sure as much as possible to convince them to get a passport, because if you ever need to leave Dachuf, it helps if you have a valid passport. The other thing is, on our end, I have a friend who lives in the Golan who told me that he has a stack of mattresses in his house that he keeps there because, you know, a few people have mentioned about the possibility that we may be facing an influx and the tashtit is not in place, the infrastructure is not in place, but we as individuals can. My husband and I happen to live in a fairly large apartment. It's just the two of us most of the time. And I think we should really downsize. But then, you know, it occurs to me that I want to be able to, if the time comes, God forbid, I want to be able to be ready to receive the people that I care about, the people that I love. So I don't have a stack of mattresses, but I have a lot of extra beds. And I would say it's a message that I just plant as lovingly and gently as I can with the people that I am connected to who still live in America. I'm I'm just saying, just make sure you have a valid passport and just know you have a place to come. And we can all do that with the people in our circles.
Thank you so much, Rivka. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. People that have already spoken, I'm sorry, there are a lot of people that haven't yet spoken, so give them a chance, please.
Hi, my name is Nechama Goodman, and we just celebrated our first year since we made Aliyah.
Mazel tov.
And so it's very fresh in my memory how challenging it was, and I just really strongly feel that we have got to do whatever we can to take the obstacles out of people's way, because we were literally without an address for 2 months. And we had been told that things would be processed sooner, and they weren't. So I'm just saying that there's stuff that's very broken, and I don't know what we can do about it, but it's got to be fixed, because if you trip people up even before, it doesn't make any sense. So that was my experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else who has not yet spoken? Yes, sir.
I'll make it very quick. My name is Ezra Ridgely from the Jewish Heritage Project. I did Aliyah just less than a year ago in Alan Shvut. But my point is this: we have a template in the Torah for to help people do Aliyah. Hashem sent 2 shlichim, Moses and Aaron. They went into Egypt and brought like 3-4 million people out of Egypt. So this organization we have here, it's just starting a nuclear stage, but it's going to grow, and Hashem's going to make it grow. And it's my opinion that there should be teams, maybe even dozens of shlichim, shliachs that are going to be going to America, France, Europe, South America, representing the organization. You even have a name yet. I don't know if you have a name. Let's say it was called Project in Israel or whatever you want to call it. And they would represent the organization, and they would go and speak to the rabbis, get the appointments, and make themselves known. There'll be like maybe a little bit of noise. These people are coming. They're coming to talk about Aliyah. And the rabbis, they'll sit down with them and say, hey, we're with you. We'll help you with the logistics. You can do it. They need the encouragement, and then the name of the organization will grow, and the shlichim will make it known, and with PR and everything, I believe that it will help a lot with shlichim, because that's the Torah template that Hashem set, and so this is one piece of thing that we can do.
Thank you so much, sir. On that note, we are going to go. Yes, Rabbi, please, the last speaker, and then we're going to move to the next phase.
Thank you. My name is Rabbi Yaakov Gurwitz. I'm the founder of Aliyah Paveway. We have the brochures over here on the side. Paveway. Bagels also. Israel is a place that loves Aliyah, but the Oleh is forgotten about. And what we did is we tried to start an organization where we help the individuals. The person comes, they go through Nefesh B'Nefesh, they go through the Jewish agency, they bang their heads until they almost give up, or they get stuck with their work. What we do is, this is what you have to do. You have a whole list of things. You hardly speak Hebrew, and when you get here, you don't know what to do, where to go. You don't even know how to get to the address. You don't know how to fill up a Rav Kav. You don't know any of these things. Well, we started, we realized that the insurmountable problems, so we started a year and a half ago, our Aliyah paveway.com. You can look at the website. We have 2 chidushim, 2 things that we basically did. Number 1, we trained a team of milavim or milavot that will actually take you by the hand after you made Aliyah, or even before you came Aliyah, will take you by the hand and actually carry out the errands. You don't have to do it all by yourself. We have your back. We'll be with you. We'll go to the bank and talk to the other in Hebrew so that you feel like you're not lost. Okay, we'll go to the Misrata Panim, and when they ignore you, we'll push our way. We're a little bit more chutzpah. We've been here a couple of years already, so we know how to do it. So this is what number 1, we help with the Milavim. Number 2 is when you come and you need all the practical services. You need service providers, so you can either take either the Yellow Pages, potluck, or if you're a little bit better, you do Facebook and you try to ask your friends, but you still don't know. So what we did is we went through the whole country. I'm from Tveria. I came from Tveria today, and I'm here. I lived in Yerushalayim for 38 years. Now I'm in Tveria the last 2 years. Okay, and but we're working on this. But Bez Hashem, we also went through the whole country. We have a list of vetted service suppliers who speak English, who will give you forms in English. If it's the telephones and all these different things over here, and we are on top of their backs. They will give service, American service. Remember that word, your customer service? We brought that. So there are customer services over here on these few things that over here. We have the list of them. This is what Aliyah Pevri does. We need help. We need extra people who want to be, malavim. We need financial help, obviously, all types of things. This is what the government should actually be doing. We're doing what the government should have. Should be thousands of people working like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. And with that, we're going to conclude the public forum, and we're going to go on to the next. We're going to skip the intermission and any breaks because we're trying to wrap it up by 9 o'clock. We're going on to our proposal phase and discussion phase. I'm going to read off the proposals that have already been made. There can be additional proposals added to them afterwards, and there will be a discussion period which will wrap up this period. The suggested proposals. The following is a list of suggested proposals which were presented by the organizers of the conference and received from people concerned about the current Aliyah situation. After the proposals are discussed during the conference, a final list will be formulated to send to the official government and quasi-government offices and agencies dealing with Aliyah and Klita. In light of the increasing rate of assimilation throughout the diaspora and the threatening rise in anti-Semitism, in order to dramatically increase Aliyah and to make a Klita of Olim more effective, we suggest the following. The State of Israel initiate a massively financed national Aliyah project designed to bring millions of Jews to Israel in the shortest time possible and to implement whatever is needed to ensure that the new immigrants build a successful new life in the Jewish homeland. Some of the emergency steps include the Prime Minister of Israel, whomever he or she may be, has to call out loudly to all the Jews of the diaspora, to all rabbis in the diaspora, to all the leaders of major Jewish organizations, to all the editors of Jewish newspapers, and to all Jewish parents, Jewish leaders of the world, Jewish educators, Jewish parents, urge your congregants, your members, your readers, and your children to make Aliyah now. The immediate commencement of building special Olim cities and communities geared for the social, religious, and cultural needs of each country and community of immigrant origin. The upgrading and restructuring of the Ministry of Aliyah and Absorption with a far greater budget and greater powers to implement the needed changes to aid the new immigrants in all facets of their Aliyah and Klita, to create jobs and job training programs for new Olim, and to facilitate the placement of doctors, lawyers, dentists, high-tech workers, etc., in their respective fields. To call upon diaspora rabbis to encourage their congregants to make Aliyah and to lead by their own personal example. To encourage the Chabad organization to play an active role in Aliyah. So? To replace Jewish agency involvement in Aliyah with quasi-independent agencies like Nefesh B'Nefesh in all countries, to cancel all evangelical or Christian funding of Aliyah, to raise additional funds for the National Aliyah Project and for financially needy Olim from Jewish benefactors and Jewish communities in the diaspora, to revamp all programs of Israel Diaspora Connection by placing the emphasis on Aliyah and not, for example, on strengthening diaspora communities or strengthening Jewish identity in the diaspora. The goal of all educational programs must be Aliyah directed. It must be made clear that the only future for the Jewish people is in Eretz Israel. These were the proposals that were made. Of course, other ones can be made. These can be discussed. And I will open up the floor now to discussion or additional proposals. Anyone who has a proposal can get up and has 3 minutes to present. Right. No, we called on somebody. You can be afterwards.
Hi. Hi, I'm Shani Brodesky. Thank you for having this whole conference. It's been sort of long time coming. A little closer. I have a proposal that I've been working on that's based off of work that I did in Australia with refugees. Now, I made Aliyah 9 years ago, and whilst I guess I had all of the motivation, the desire, I can't remember which rabbi it was that said that, like, you're called up for Aliyah, like Aliyah Torah, you get Aliyah. Yeah, so that's basically what happened with us as well. We had like no money, we had no whatever, and I just saw the gates open, and we took our 4 little children. We came against the wishes of family, etc. So it was a very big move, and I straight away fell into my children having problems with their adjustment, and I'm a psychologist in Australia, and I was like, where is the support here? where is the kind of, oh my gosh, my child stopped talking because the ganenet sort of didn't have the patience to try and communicate with a child who was not understanding her, who of course he didn't understand her. So, and he was in Ghana and he didn't like qualify for anything, like they just kind of adjust. So I decided to make a program called Aliyah with Kids. And that was like in lieu of like what happened with my child, and thought, let's prepare people, and their emotional well-being is looked after mentally, because their mental well-being is looked after, because basically I think one of the fundamental reasons that people do not stay in the country as well, or get caught in like a kind of, I don't know if it's like a trauma after they sometimes, like they want to be here and then all the things start to hit them, is that we have something called mental health and mental well-being, and that needs to be kind of stable and stabilized. And it's not talked a lot about, but if people have problems in one area of their life and they make Aliyah, often it gets exacerbated. Aliyah gives you sometimes a hit on your ability to communicate, on your career, on your identity, on all of the things that kind of make us able to function, not to mention the language, not to mention like having to re-establish social support, communities, like friends and all the things that we need to really function in life, and structure and routine. And so I did that privately, but then I was thinking bigger, because like Hashem, right, like what I did beforehand was something called an early intervention program in Australia for refugees coming into the country who are coming from more war-torn places. But what the government realised in Australia was that when you let mental health issues be the last on the list, the people that you're bringing in who are not taken care of mentally, emotionally, end up being a drain on, unfortunately, government resources, which is how they think. They don't do anything without realise what's the payback. So there, they thought, let's give them 12 sessions of mental health services when they arrive. Every single refugee, give them whatever it was like assessments and counselling and group therapies and community building, community development, and then their chances of settling in and functional part of the community will be better. And this is what they found, and that's the program I worked for. So when I started to realise that there's a lot of, so just to close, we got a group together of therapists, like professional psychologists and therapists, and like we wanted to do like a whole Aliyah wellbeing program with centres around the country, so that people have about, like, there's a few aspects to the programs. So there's like pre-Aliyah counselling, there's sessions once they arrive, there's group, there's lectures, there's like a bunch of different interventions, service provider training, which is like people who already are Israeli-based services that have Olim coming in to make them aware of some of the immigration issues that people might be. So it's a whole program that that's been sitting here, ready to go. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very important. Okay, is there anyone that has not yet spoken that wants to make a proposal? Anyone who has not yet spoken? Okay, sir, you want to start with your proposal?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that there are communities, and those communities should stay together. Like, if I live in Baltimore and I have a lot of friends and neighbors, Jews that I know, I have a social network that is really important to me. Now, Rabbi Riskin, which Josh mentioned, was discussing this with me in 1973 at Lincoln Square Synagogue. The idea is to make partial Aliyah. In other words, to open a branch of a congregation in America, to open a branch in Israel, so that they still, people that make Aliyah are still part of the community and are tied with it and exchange. Like, for instance, I had a business in Milano and I commuted there. And again, I have lived for a year in Hashmonaim, which are hundreds of American doctors, lawyers, finance people who telecommute. There are people in Italy that have stores and they watch it over the internet and interact with them, just go pick up the cash once a month. It's very possible to create a community here, a satellite community. Rabbi Rishkin did it and gradually transferred the whole community to a frat. At the same time, we in San Francisco, the House of Love and Prayer, made Aliyah en masse, 40 families together, and we established the Moshav Modi'in. In the Negev, there are Abramovitz and a few more people built Ketura. That's a Reform congregation, but, there's a room for them too. That's one thing that we should understand. You can just say, okay, you're not Orthodox, we don't want you in Israel. It's absurd. You're going to have to cope with the fact that there are Reform Jews in America and accept them as such, but not necessarily marry with them. I suggest that we check Professor Amitai Etzion, who started in George Washington University, the Center for the Study of Communities, ic.org, Intentional Communities Center. I seem to have lost the minutes. And again, we should also come together as a lobby group and constantly lobby the Knesset, constantly lobby the legislators about Aliyah. So Judith is going to start a WhatsApp chat. Let's get together, meet virtually and meet in person on occasions, organize that, and create a lobby group for Aliyah. I personally am going to travel around the campuses. I used to with Reb Shlomo in the 80s. I do concerts and kumsitzes, show documentaries, talk about Aliyah, and we brought people.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's it. So I am going to make this winter a tour of the campuses and gather people for my Heliosville project.
Thank you. Thank you so much. In the back, you can come in for 3 minutes. Proposals?
So, first of all, I want to say about your proposal is my issue.
Not my
is-
proposal. Those
I
are
know,
proposals
Tzvi
that
and
were
the whole
submitted.
committee,
Okay.
I get it. My issue with that, and I think I've said this to Tzvi previously, is that you're saying the Israeli government needs to do this, Israel needs to do the Jewish agency, everybody here. The problem's not on our end. The problem's in America and other Chutz La'aretz communities. So what we need to do is education and outreach of our own. So I propose that we start a separate organization. Maybe we get funding from the government or the Jewish agency, but we start our own organization of educators. People, reaching out to shuls, barnstorming, having scholars in residence at the big shuls. Yishai Fleischer, where is he? He spoke at my shul in the States. It was very inspirational, I thought. Creating curriculums for day schools in America that teach the mitzvah of Aliyah. That's not taught. And things of that nature, teaching at YU and encouraging at YU to make Aliyah. At the same time, we can also have outreach. This we would need the Jewish agency and the government for, to help promote the educational, the programs that exist here for young people, Bar Ilan, IDC, Hebrew U, or the high schools like Na'aleh and YTA. We can't say, Bar Ilan, you need to do a better job promoting. They're not going to do it. But if we get an organization together funded by the Jewish agency that promotes all the universities to high school students and to yeshiva kids here, and we do an outreach of our own organization to the yeshivas, because we know that the yeshivas won't do it for us, and we have an outreach to the elementary schools and high schools about YTA and Na'aleh and other programs, that will happen, and that can make a difference in the long run.
Thank you. Who else would like to present a proposal? Ziva? Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to first just point out a very important point that I think really speaks to what you said, Josh, is that we have to go on a working assumption that there's actually a lot of politicians in the Israeli government who not only don't support Aliyah, but they're actually against Aliyah. And a lot of people don't realize this. They think that they need to keep their constituents in North America, where they can support the American government or wherever it may be, and keep them there so that we keep our political sway in Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, some of them will be outright against it, some of them will be very pariv, and also you have to realize that every Oleh that comes costs the Israeli government money. And they actually stagger it, okay, it's not something that they advertise, but they're staggering the acceptance of applications and things like that because they can't have everybody make Aliyah at the same time. So again, we have to go in talking effectively, and in terms of the politicians, we have to realize that not everybody supports Aliyah. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing is that I think that one of the things that we have to add to the proposal is there has to be a fast tracking of lands to create more communities for Olim. Not everybody hashkafically fits into Efrat, Modi'in, or Ramat Beit Shemesh. It's not the catch-all that they want it to be, and there's so many people. It's expensive also, but even if everywhere is expensive, let's even put that aside, because we're not going to try to solve the treasury problems here, but I'm saying so many people, if I get 2 to 3 calls a week of people saying, I want to make Aliyah, I came to Israel even, I checked out different communities, but mirim yadayim, like they're just like throwing up their hands and saying I don't find a place that I fit. There's a lot of people who are in places like Passaic and Baltimore and Boca and Chicago who fall in between modern Orthodox that they could go to Efrat, let's say, versus Haredi Israeli that they see Ramat Beit Shemesh. Even if a lot of people in places like Beit Shemesh are different, but the marachot there are much more Haredi Israeli, or they don't want to touch Ramat Beit Shemesh with a 10-foot pole because of other issues, but there needs to be more options than just here, here, or here. So I think... What? Yeah, in other words, there needs to be more options. It's literally copy-paste. Everybody's looking for the same exact thing, some of which might be very hard to provide. They're not going to find the pastoral house for under 4 million shekel within half an hour of Yerushalayim, but still within the confines, we need to propose that there be a new community, and especially that fits that certain hashkafa that doesn't find themselves here. Also, I think that it needs to also address the fact that there's what I call reverse aliyah, meaning because there are people that don't find their place, people make aliyah, and I cannot tell you from my friends, I have so many people that are now expats living back in Cleveland, they mentioned Cleveland, because they came here, they were here for 10, 12, 15 years even, didn't find their community, they tried all the different options, they wandered, okay, no offense, but and then they ended up going back. So we have to also address the fact that we're losing a lot of people that nobody wants to talk about. Also, I just wanted to say that also one of the issues that people find in terms of education, this is very matim to those communities like Efrat and Ramat Beit Shemesh, is that the way that Misrad HaChinuch is set up, they can handle the following. Either a kid needs up to 10, 20 minutes of Hara Metakenet a week of extra resource room help, or they have to go to the Chinuch Miuchad system. It's a travesty. You go to Ramat Beit Shemesh, you have more than 50% of the kids there that are dual language kids, and all of them have only those 2 options. Either 10 to 20 minutes of help, which is nothing, or go to the Chinuch Miuchad system, which is taking away the budgets from kids who actually need the Chinuch Miuchad system. And they're with kids who are having a lot of social issues or emotional issues or whatever it is that are not matim for the population, and they don't have a maneh, they don't have a way to solve that issue. And just in terms of language, I do suggest that we propose it as challenging them again, using the same language, to a tochnit av, a master plan. We're not just putting forth nice suggestions, we're challenging them to action and saying, we need you to come up with a master plan, just like you do for everything else, housing and whatever it is. A tochnit av is the terminology that they use. We need a master plan for Olim.
Thank you. On that note, when my family came back after 10 years of being abroad as retired citizens, I already had teenage children, and we went to the Jerusalem municipality to sign them up for schooling, and we found that there was a disconnect when it came to them understanding what a religious family is like in America. We had some children that fit more into the Haredi system, and we had other children that fit more into the Dati Leumi system. And the Jerusalem municipality could not understand how it could be that we have some children like this and some children like that. They said you're either fitted to that system or that system. How could you have multiple children with multiple personalities? What's going on here? So it's in some ways it's very sad, and we had to fight very hard in order for them to understand that we do have different children with different personalities. That's not necessarily a negative thing. They all have their assets, and we were able to get them into the proper schooling, but it took a lot of fighting in order to do so. My wife is Israeli. I lived here for over 30 years, so we had the language, we had the culture, we knew how to fight. Many Olim don't have those skills and those resources. Okay, who else has a proposal? Yes, sir. You'll be next, ma'am.
Couple of quick things. I noticed when I was still living in America that the only outreach that I felt was directed towards me as an American, say Haredi, about Aliyah was when I opened up Mishpacha magazine and I would see, $4 million apartments, Ramat Givat Zev. Come make Aliyah, Jerusalem, great deal, only 5 million, So, these people have a business, obviously they're trying to run the business, but actually they're doing a tremendous disservice to Aliyah, which is feeding into the stigma, the incorrect stigma, that Israel is for either the super rich or the people that are willing to live in a tuna can and are just completely poor on kollel. It's not true. There are people that are middle class. There are people that are all different types. And if all we see is these fancy, apartments, it does tremendous damage towards Aliyah. So part of the problem is that the only people that have enough money to pay for these mishpacha ads are, these wealthy, super expensive, projects. So why doesn't the government try to subsidize some of these more affordable projects and work out some sort of deal where people in America can say, hey, look, there's not only, apartments for the rich, there's apartments for the middle class too. And maybe the middle, those kind of more affordable apartments don't have a marketing budget. Let the government help them. That could be much more powerful than kind of like a in-your-face, come make Aliyah. Be more subtle, be more, here are the options. And people say, oh, okay, so there's options for me. It's not just, for the rich or the poor. I think that would be much, if there's some way to do that. So that's one idea. Another idea that I had is creating a rabbinical conference in the States that would be, let's say, confidential. No one would know who's invited. No one would know who's going, because there's a lot of stigmas, as I said before. So you have this kind of conference with the top rabbanim in Israel. Like Rav Berkowitz and Breitowitz and other, there's a lot of rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael, Haredi rabbanim, that are very into Aliyah, okay? They're not communicating so much with the rabbanim in America. So there's this disconnect. The rabbanim in America are thinking there's no parnasa here, and everybody goes off the derech, and there's no chinuch and all these things. Why don't you get them all together in a room and talk about the point isn't to sell them on Aliyah. The point is to tell them, okay, there were facts 20 years ago, and there are facts today. Here are the facts today. There are these communities, there are these schools, the off the derech rate is such and such. What's your off the derech rate? And see that there's a lot of things that are just incorrect. Show them, just give them the facts, and make a campaign there's a campaign in the American Haredi media of, start shidduchim early. Think about shidduchim early. So why don't we make a campaign of, ask the shaila, should I make Aliyah? I'm not telling you to make Aliyah. We're telling you, ask the shaila at least. Nobody's even asking the shaila. And the problem is right now, if you ask the shaila, you'll come up to a Rav in America that might not know all the facts. So he's going to give you misguided information and try to discourage you, which happens in the vast majority of cases. You have this conference and you bring the top Haredi Rabbanim from America together with them, and then after you give them this information and build these connections and network, then ask the Shaila. First do your research, speak to organizations here that can help you out, Alia Network and other, WhatsApp group, whatever do the research, and then go to your Rav and ask the Shaila after he's already spoken to the Rabbanim of Israel, and then it'll be a whole different picture. So,
in conclusion,
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I love your ideas. My family is fortunate enough, I think it was before, that we've hosted over 1,000 seminary girls, American seminary girls in our house. Inevitably, after a Shabbos with the Wanders, they get this crazy idea that Jews are supposed to live in Israel, and there's always one girl, usually from Lakewood, I like picking on Lakewood, that gets up and says, but our rabbis tell us that we don't have to live in Israel. And I struggled with that question for many years because I'm not going to be the one that is going to tell an impressionable 18 or 19-year-old girl that she should not listen to her rabbis. And I once posed this to a rabbi from Beit Shemesh, Yehudis' Rabbi Danny Myers, and I said to him on one of our shows, I said, what should I tell these girls that say to us, but our rabbis tell us that we don't have to move to Israel? And he told me an answer which I use to this day, which I think is brilliant. He told them like this: you should tell them that they always have to listen to their rabbis. That is a fundamental of our Masorah, of our tradition, to listen to our rabbis. So you always have to listen to your rabbis. But there's one time, and one time only, where you have to ask more questions of your rabbis. And that's when it comes to Eretz Yisrael. And why is that an exception to the rule? So he says, if you look at Jewish history, from the beginning of Jewish history, the Nesiim, the Meraglim, from the spies, until you get to the Olei Bavel, until you get to the Holocaust, you see a theme, you see a pattern, that over and over and over again, the rabbis make a mistake when it comes to moving to Eretz Yisrael. So if there's one time that you should ask more questions to your rabbis, it's when it comes to this issue of Eretz Yisrael. So definitely it's something I can tell you that I speak to American rabbis every week. I often get the answer that we feel hypocritical speaking about our congregants because we haven't made Aliyah. And as soon as they make Aliyah, then it's too late because they all of a sudden are put into another category that they're Israelis. Even if they were the most prominent rabbi in America, all of a sudden now they're Israeli rabbis, so we don't have to listen to them. And it's a big problem because I stress to them that this is really the time that they have the most influence, that when they're rabbis in America and people are looking up to them as rabbis in America, they really have the most influence to say, you know what, we are rabbis in America. There's a rabbi that just passed away that I had many conversations with, Rabbi Wallerstein, Zechron Levracha. And Rabbi Wallerstein and I spoke about this many times. And there's a video that we have on our website of him saying that, you know what, we made a mistake. We as Jews, we have to do tshuva. We're in the period of Elul. We have to have introspection. We have to look at ourselves, and we always constantly have to better ourselves and think what we can do better. And we have to admit when we make mistakes. So we're rabbis in America. We have to at least get to the point that we're willing to admit that we're making a mistake. Okay, I'm not on the level yet that I'm making. Everybody comes to me and says, Rabbi, why aren't you making Aliyah? Okay, I'm making a mistake. I'm not on that level yet. There's a rabbi in one of the biggest congregations in North America and Canada, Rabbi Karobkin in the Bayit, for those that don't know, in Toronto, that also amazingly says that his goal is to make sure that every one of his congregants comes on Aliyah, and that he shuts off the lights at the end. That's what he says. So, but that he's made it as a goal for himself to push Aliyah in his shul. And we need more rabbis that are willing to get up and courageously and make that statement. Next proposal. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Thank you again. This is in addition to the why to cancel the agreement of Ben Gurion and Jacob Blaustein. It's because it is they, the Jews in America, who have abrogated the agreement. The agreement was that the Jews in America support the state of Israel, yet there's the NIF, the New Israel Fund, who is supporting the Arabs in Eretz Yisrael. And I think this is 40 years, is enough, more than 40 years of the NIF supporting our enemies in Eretz Yisrael. They have broken the agreement, and our state, our country of Israel, should officially tear it up. They should cancel it. And with that, like you said, Elul, month of tshuva, month of introspection, but also of requesting slicha from someone who's we've offended, and slicha in English, reparation, and not.
Repentance.
Repentance, yes. But to ask forgiveness, because we know that if we did something against Hashem, we can ask Hashem. But if we did something against a fellow Jew, then we have to ask that fellow Jew. And if a non-Jew does something against a fellow Jew, to pull that Jew away from the God of Israel. The God of Israel will never, he left, will never forgive him. No missionary will ever be forgiven unless that missionary can bring back that particular Jew to the God of Israel.
Thank you. Okay, any other proposals? Any other proposals? Okay, if there's no other proposals, we want to hear a song. Yes, there's been this man, a musician that has patiently been waiting to play his Aliyah song. Please come up and give us a treat.
So, I was born in Brooklyn in 1948, and I had a series of experiences that burned in my heart. And in 1998, I made Aliyah. So that's like almost 25 years ago. And I wrote this song when this is our story. Oh, sorry. Let's start again. I'm a little nervous and tired too. You thought you'd never make it here. You'd never overcome your fear. You waited for too many years to ever sing your song. A son or daughter of Galut, exiled and cut off from your root. But now God's hand has touched your foot to rise up for your song. The winds of heaven sweep the land in search of all of Jacob's bands. Deep in our hearts, something demands that we be going home. You wept at the river of Bavel, and you hung your harps upon the willows. Your sadness much too deep to tell, still they asked for your songs. You wandered then from place to place, and you often had to hide your face. Your name they wanted to erase completely under heaven, but you kept a Sabbath and a prayer. One God for people everywhere. You prayed at Pesach every year. Next year, Jerusalem. They herded you in cattle cars, and they sent your ashes to the stars. But they could not destroy your heart, could not destroy your soul. Oh, seed of Jacob, hear your call. You have been ransomed from your fall. Return to Eretz Yisrael. Come up and sing your song. The winds of heaven sweep the lands in search of all of Jacob's bands. Deep in our hearts, something demands that we be going home. Oh, sons and daughters, find your wings. Now fly, forget the former things. Moshiach comes to be your king and give you a new song. Israel.
Thank you so much. I want to conclude by thanking again Zvi Fishman, who is the organizer of this conference, Yehudis Shamroth, the woman behind everything here, and thanking you all for coming to this incredible first step to bringing the Jewish people home. I'm going to play, for those that want to hang out a little bit longer, the videos that we have on our. Of course, you can go to itstimeteleave.com and you can see it yourself, but you can see the rabbis speak over here if you'd like to stick around.